Alrighty, folks, what do you think? Does Prey suck? Nope. At a high level, Prey doesn't seem very fresh or innovative when compared to the bio or System Shocks of the world. You're trapped in a large, open, and decaying environment filled with hostile enemies. You need to collect recyclable junk to build tools and upgrade through a skill tree that ultimately decides if you give up your humanity. The plot allows you to proceed at your own pace and is delivered by radio or through recorded devices found in the environment. If this sounds familiar, it's because it should. This has been the basis for many great games, but it leaves out a lot of the nuance that makes Prey one of the most interesting games I've played and one I find myself coming back to again and again.
Look, is she? She's hiding behind the chair.
But before I go into what I like, let me show that Prey, it's not perfect. Sometimes the sound mixer decides that you're better off being deaf.
Ms. Yu!
Requesting new operator.
It's so loud. Some enemies are much stronger than usual with little indication as to why, and their attacks lack visual indicators as to their true danger. Sure, I mean 17 shots sounds fair. And my gun broke. As for the story, it's good enough to justify and craft the world, but it's not memorable enough for me to remember anything about it. It's not bad. The game also has a lot of environmental hazards, which, it isn't always a bad thing, but just like the enemy attacks, they don't always look as dangerous as they are. Got some electricity here. Looks like it just arcs in front of itself. What? Went right at me. Prey also just has some general bugs. I mean, look at all this. The box can't be pushed. The box won't pull through. Screw it. Let's move the other one. You see that button right in there? It's disappearing. Don't tell the devs. And I'm stuck. What about the other way? Nope. Okay, done complaining. Now, what makes Prey so good is the way it delivers a convincing survival experience. I like to think of a survival experience as being a precise mixture of tension, choice, and resource management. And I find that many games concoct this mixture quite poorly. Often there are too many resources or too few choices available, or the problems in general just aren't tense enough to warrant interesting choices or resource usage. Failing at even one of these concepts can ruin the entire experience. But when a game has all three, then you should be engaged with the idea of surviving. And like a hungry caveman with an abundance of sharp rocks, you'll explore the bounds of your tools and abilities and cleverness to find solutions. All right, you animal? So you might be wondering now, how does Prey deal with resource management? Easy. It doesn't give you enough shit to work with. At first, the station will seem flush with resources, and you'll probably stockpile a nice collection of weapons and ammo. Then you'll get into some encounters and realize just how quickly that collection disappears. You might find yourself hunting for metal just to get enough bullets to use, or desperately trying to find a way into a locked room that you can see as an upgrade. Resource scarcity is further compounded by the need to revisit zones with newly populated enemies several times throughout the game. You will learn to be efficient. Well, what about player choice then? I think that looking at some items and weapons can make this clear. Let's start with the glue gun. You see that shit all over the walls? That's glue. So the glue gun cannot deal direct damage to anything and is instead a utility weapon. It can cover enemies in glue to stop their movement, fix leaking pipes, put out fires, detonate those damn suicide aliens, and create platforms on walls that, when used correctly, can allow the player to get practically anywhere they see. Hey look, it's right on the screen. There are about 7 enemies just down this little hall, and I could fight them all, or I could try to get around them on the ground, but I could just use one glue pellet and avoid them altogether. Pretty nice. Another interesting item is the recycler grenade, which takes anything in its radius and just deconstructs it. While they are devastating to enemies, they can also be used on inanimate items throughout the environment to open up paths. These large crates could not be moved until later in the game, but with a recycler grenade, the path is easily cleared. Also, Let's look back at the room with the disappearing button, because it is a perfect example of choice. Just so you know, that door over there is locked, so you can't just walk in from that side. Um, and how do you get in? And let's say we're ignoring the bug where the switch disappears. There are other rooms kind of similar to this. Well, you can go through that slot with an ability. You can remotely press the button with a weapon. You can remotely press the button with an ability. You can find the code to the door lock, and you can hack the door lock. If that isn't a lot of choice, I don't know what is. All right, so we see a little bit how Prey handles resource management and player choice. Well, what about tension? It generates tension by making encounters very quick, decisive, and difficult. All the enemies are dangerous and can quickly lead to death if they are not dispatched with sufficient strategy or speed. You'll know you've picked the smartest path when the enemy is destroyed in 1 second with minimal resource costs, the simpleton path when you burn through half your inventory to win, or the dead path when you just have to try again. The environment is also littered with traps that can cause action to whipsaw between silently moving and lonely corridors, or running for your life as an entire complex worth of baddies try to block your escape to the nearest lockable door. The enemy roster contains all the classics. You got your fire guys, your electric guys, your guys that split in half and then they just kill you, guys that pop out and give you a little jump, and many others. Everything wants you dead, but with the proper preparation and knowledge, you can move forward. Even the later enemies that are somewhat more abstract have a strategy waiting to be found that makes them more manageable or just avoidable altogether. Unlike this damn electrical conduit, I was so far away. I should add that everything I'm talking about is on the highest difficulty. I can't really imagine playing it on anything easier, as it probably takes away all the tension. I really don't know, though. I've never done it, but I'm not interested in a compromised experience. And even on the hardest difficulty, things do get easier as you progress and improve your abilities. And there really are a lot of different ability paths, more than you'll likely see in a given playthrough. You can do stealth builds where you die a lot, psyker builds where you can pretty much just become a god and kill everything, or somebody who needs turrets to fight all your battles. There's lots of different options out there. And while I could talk about individual sections of the game more specifically, I kind of feel like the less said, the better. If you've played Prey and don't agree with anything I've said, I would implore you to give it another shot. And, if you're new to it, crank up the difficulty and get ready to get your ass kicked in the best way possible.